What is up, boys and girls? We are back, and today we're going to be talking about Gene Silva versus the rest of the UFC featherweight division's top 15. And I gotta say, it's been a minute since the Gene Silva's last fight. You know, Gene Silva, he's known as the type of guy who will fight every couple of months, but he fought in April, and we haven't really heard much of him in the media lately. And I know he's booked to fight Diego Lopez very soon, but I think a lot of people are starting to forget about Gene Silva, dude, how good this guy actually is, because Gene Silva is one of those guys who I believe will be champion by the end of next year, most definitely, dude. I mean, seriously, this guy is so good, dude. I mean, Bryce Mitchell's only lost to some of the best fighters in the UFC, dude. The kid's only real losses to Ilia Topuria. Josh Emmett was a fluke. All his other losses I don't really credit, but Gene Silva decimated Bryce Mitchell. I mean, Gene Silva beat Bryce Mitchell better than Ilia Topuria beat Bryce Mitchell. People are forgetting how good Gene Silva is. Gene Silva just knocks out everyone, and I think you guys are really going to see how I feel about Gene Silva in this video. I think you guys are really going to see how I feel when I have Gene Silva knocking out half of these guys. But before we get into my actual, I guess, predictions on Gene Silva, how he's going to do against the rest of the fighters, make sure to subscribe, dude. I want to make that clear that it would mean so much if you guys just click that subscribe button. I believe we're at like 860 subscribers right now. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I do believe that is possible. It takes 1 second. It would mean a lot. And I'm a small, strong channel trying to go, man. Just subscribe. But let's talk about it, dude. The first guy, 15 through 11, they're going to be pretty easy matchups for Gene Silva. Gene Silva is currently ranked 10th in the division. So realistically, we're not going to talk about 15 through 11 for too long, because Gene Silva's already ranked higher, and Gene Silva would pretty much kill half of these guys. But number 15, Giga Chikadze, he honestly would, I don't know, man. I think Gene Silva would struggle early on against Giga Chikadze. I know that's pretty crazy to say, but Giga Chikadze, he can manage his distance, dude. He's a former kickboxer. I think a kickboxer in Rising or a Glory kickbox, one of those things, dude. I forget, but he's a good kickboxer, man. He can manage the distance well. And the thing about this guy though is he never changes in any of his fights, dude. You look back at Giga Chikadze's early fights in the UFC, he's the same fighter he is today. He's a good fighter, maybe around the top 10 he can be in his best days, but honestly, he's not that good. He's not that guy anymore. He's aging, dude. His last fight against David Onama, he looked really bad, dude. His game plan in his last fight just made me mad, dude. And Giga Chikadze is just one of those guys who I don't believe is really that good anymore. I mean, was he really ever that good? I don't know, but Giga Chikadze, you'd probably be able to do decent against Gene Silva early on, dude. I can see this guy doing some side kicks, maybe some leg kicks. Gene Silva's getting pieced up at range, and then Gene Silva's gonna get comfortable, dude. He's gonna find his rhythm, and he's gonna find the chin, dude. Gene Silva is one of the hardest hitters in the 145 division, and he's gonna be able to find the chin of Giga Chikadze, dude. I'm sorry, Giga Chikadze. I mean, I'm not really confident in your ability to to beat Gene Silva. I think that's a fact. Gene Silva would probably knock out Giga Chikadze in like the second round. Number 14. Who's number 14? We got Dan Ige. And I was talking about gatekeepers when I was talking about Giga Chikadze. I said maybe Giga Chikadze is a bit of a gatekeeper. Well, let me tell you about gatekeepers, man. Because when you think of gatekeeper, you think of Dan Ige. Dan Ige is, when I hear the word gatekeeper, I think of Dan Ige. He's the biggest gatekeeper in the UFC. I mean, probably in history, man. This guy, he's the definition of a gatekeeper. Whenever this guy's number 15 spot is on the line, whenever this guy is about to lose his ranking, he locks in. When Dan Ige is ranked 13th, when he's ranked 12th, he can take a loss, dude. He can take 2 losses, maybe. But the second this guy is on the verge of becoming unranked, he locks in, and that's the thing I like about Dan Ige, dude. He knows when to lock in. Dan Ige is a personal favorite of mine. I've respected this guy since he stepped in on short notice against Diego Lopez. I mean, who does that? Who does that to Diego Lopez on short notice? Nobody does that. But I respect him, but let's be real, guys. I'm not going to pick him against Gene Silva. Gene Silva would absolutely decimate Danny Ige. Danny Ige is just a short little midget who Gene Silva would have a field day with. Danny Ige can crack, but let me tell you, Gene Silva can also crack. Gene Silva by first round KO against this bum. Number 13. At number 13, we have David Onama. Dude, David Onama's not that good, man. He has decent striking and maybe some decent wrestling in some moments. He displayed his improving wrestling against Giga Chikadze. Giga Chikadze is not the type of guy who you really want to be flexing your wrestling against, man. Who does that to Giga Chikadze? Literally everyone in the wrestling department. Giga Chikadze has zero brother, what is grappling? Somebody check Giga Chikadze grappling. David Onama, though, I'm not understanding the hype around this guy, dude. He's a decent fighter. I think he's maybe on the verge of being ranked, but I don't think David Onama will ever be anything decent in the featherweight division. I mean, come back in a year when I'm totally wrong, this guy's fighting for a title. But no, he won't be. David Onama is a decent fighter at best. Gene Silva finds the chin of this guy pretty easily. Number 12, Steve Garcia. Steve Garcia is a marauder, man. Steve Garcia is a marauder. 5 KOs in his last 6 fights. Obviously, he couldn't get that KO against Calvin Kattar, but maybe this fight could be cool later down the line, man. Maybe if Gene Silva's coming off like a loss or two, maybe we can book this fight. This would be a cool fight night main event. 2 guys who can crack. I'm joking, guys. Gene Silva would dust past this fraud. Let's be real, dude. I mean, Steve Garcia is decent, recently ranked, but I don't see him as anything in this division. I think Calvin Kattar maybe will give Steve Garcia Josh Emmett. Maybe he can beat Josh Emmett. But other than that, dude, he's not really beating anyone in the featherweight division. Gene Silva would decimate Steve Garcia. Number 11, we have Patricio Pitbull. The guy recently fought against Dan Ige, obviously at UFC 318. It was a decent performance, but man, I think I speak for everyone when I say we don't care. No one cares about this guy. No one cares about him. I mean, who cares? Raise your hand if you care about this guy. No one raised their hand because he's so boring. I mean, there's nothing special about this guy. I mean, even Aaron Pico has more hype than this guy. I talked about that in my last video, but what is a Patricio Pitbull? The guy's barely beating gatekeepers like Dan Ige. What do you want me to tell you? He's a decent fighter, he's out of his prime, I understand that. This guy's a Bellator bum, though. Bellator guys, whenever they come in over the UFC, they do decent, but they're never a champion. And Patricio Pitbull, dude, you're already like 38. You might be older, I don't even know. But, I mean, Gene Silva would flatline you, brother. Gene Silva would flatline you. You're a midget with short reach. Gene Silva's knocked out many guys like that. Gene Silva would have a field day with you. And number 10, obviously, the next ranking in this division is Gene Silva. So we're going to fast forward to number 9 in the featherweight rankings. Number 9, we have Yusuf Zalal. And Yusuf Zalal, brother, you expect me to pick you over Gene Silva when you just barely beat Calvin Kattar? No, I'm joking. I actually respect Yusuf Zalal. That guy got a lot of slack. Yeah, he got a lot of slack after his Calvin Kattar performance, in which a lot of people said he was running the entire fight against Calvin Kattar. No, he wasn't, dude. The kid pieced up Calvin Kattar for 2 rounds, and then he decided to take the 3rd round off. He decided to play a little bit of possum against Calvin Kattar in that final round. Give Yusuf Zalal some credit, dude. The guy went to a decision with Ilia Toro. Come on, put some respect on this guy's name. But you guys see where I'm going with this. Gene Silva by 1st round TKO. I mean, Gene Silva, maybe he can struggle with Yusuf Zalal. Yusuf Zalal's a little bit quick. He's a quick little midget, man. The guy can slip through some crack, dude. He can decent head movement, good footwork. Yusuf Zalal has. I think if Yusuf Zalal can go to decision with Ilia Topuria, maybe he can go to decision with Gene Silva, and maybe Yusuf Zalal can put up a decision at best against Gene Silva. But it's a dominant decision from Gene Silva, guys. Don't get me wrong. I'm still saying Gene Silva is gonna dust past this guy. At number 8, we have Josh Emmett, man. Josh Emmett, people forget this guy is the hardest hitting 145 pounder, man. The real hardest hitting 145 pounder knocked out Jeremy Stevens. Oh, Jeremy Stevens knocked him out actually. But you guys know what I'm saying here. Josh Emmett, dude, I really don't care. I don't care about you anymore, dude. I predicted this guy against Lerone Murphy. I predicted Josh Emmett against Lerone Murphy. Holy casual take. What a casual take for me. Josh Emmett, dude, you're not that good anymore. You're 41. You're super old. And Gene Silva would probably find your chin. I mean, maybe not. No, I take that back. I take that back completely. I think Josh Emmett can go 5 rounds with Gene Silva, dude. Gene Silva, I mean, if Ilia Topuria is not knocking out this guy, well then Gene Silva's not, dude. Despite what Josh Emmett look at this picture of Josh Emmett at the end of his fight against Ilia Topuria, dude. What would Gene Silva do? I think maybe Josh Emmett would be able to survive. Maybe a 50-43 from Gene Silva. But Gene Silva's going to decimate this guy, dude. Let's get on to the number 7. Number 7, we have Aljamain Sterling. And Aljamain Sterling, this is the first guy in the division where I'm actually thinking, okay, maybe this guy might be able to put up a fight against Gene Silva, because we've never seen Gene Silva's wrestling test. We've never seen someone who's going to shoot a double leg on you. Bryce Mitchell's not the type of guy to just shoot a double leg in the middle of the mat. No, he's not. You want to know who is? Aljamain Sterling, the bantamweight GOAT. I take that back, guys. I'm joking. He's not the bantamweight GOAT. He's a top 3 bantamweight of all time. But he'll take you down, dude. Aljamain Sterling's good. People forget Aljamain Sterling. He put out a cry for little performance against Calvin Kattar. Who does it to Calvin Kattar? Who does it to Calvin Kattar, man? Except literally everyone. Literally everyone does that to Calvin Kattar. That's his only win at featherweight. But still, how is Aljamain Sterling ranked so high, dude? His only win at featherweight is to Calvin Kattar. Jeez, Calvin Kattar's unranked now. That's a topic for another video. But Aljamain Sterling could put up a decent test. I think if he takes down Gene Silva early, maybe he can take the first round from Gene Silva. But the striking, dude, that's just a huge discrepancy in the striking. Aljo's striking is dog water, dude. Aljo has horrendous striking, man. I don't want to. I'm not some Lucas Tracy type of guy. I seen a Lucas Tracy video where Lucas Tracy was talking, man. People forget, man. People forget. Aljamain Sterling's only lost to the best strikers in the UFC. Shut up. Shut up, Lucas Glazy. I don't want to hear it. Aljo's striking is dog, and Gene Silva. Gene Silva would have to be able to find the chin eventually, right? I mean, maybe this would go to the decision. Maybe I'll see Aljo taking a round off him just because of the wrestling. I think Gene Silva could be a little bit unprepared, but Gene Silva has decent takedown defense. I mean, who did he get taken? I think he got taken down by Jordan Levitt, but still, dude. Or was it Charles Jourdain? I don't even remember. But still, I think Gene Silva will be able to hold up in the wrestling. Gene Silva, he has a submission game, and we've seen the guy submit. The kid's name, Bryce Mitchell. Maybe he can put Aljamain Sterling in a little ninja choke. I don't know, man. But I'd still go Gene Silva. This is the first real test because we'd actually be able to see Gene Silva's wrestling get tested. How good are his scrambles, dude? Aljamain Sterling has some of the best scrambles in the UFC. I think he can put Gene Silva in some uncomfortable positions, but Gene Silva's still gonna get it done. Number 6, we have Lerone Murphy, bro. Lerone Murphy. The kid's British. What do you want me to tell you, dude? I'm not picking someone who's British to beat Gene Silva. Call me crazy, man. I don't care. I don't care, bro. I don't really like Lerone Murphy, man. I dropped like a 15-minute rant video talking about how much I hate UFC 319. Speaking of that, everyone's talking good about UFC 319's a marauder card, bro. People forget this card's amazing. No, it's not. No, it's not, dude. The main event, don't get me wrong, I love the main event. I'm so excited for UFC 319's main event, but the rest of the card, it's fights that I care about, you know, but it's not fights that I'm dying to watch, dude. It's not fights that I need to watch this fight. The only fight that I feel that is essential for me to watch is the main event. I'm still going to watch the rest of the fights on the card, but still, dude, a UFC 19 is a good card, not a great one, maybe a little bit mediocre of a card, but still, Lerone Murphy, dude, I can't like you, dude. I just will never like you. I'd rather watch paint dry than watch a 5-round fight. Please don't tell me his fight against Aaron Pico is going to be 5 rounds. I'd die, but still, you know, it's going to be an interesting little scrap. Lerone Murphy versus Gene Silva. Yeah, Gene Silva chins this guy in the first round. I mean, Lerone Murphy has some decent boxing. He has some decent jiu-jitsu, man. People forget he's a purple belt. I don't care, dude. Lerone Murphy is going to get ragdolled by Gene Silva. End of discussion. He'd probably be a really easy fight for Gene Silva, in my opinion. His boxing is just not that good. And number 5, who do we have next? Brian Ortega. I was surprised that Brian Ortega was still ranked this high in the featherweight division. Boys, it is 2025. When was the last time this guy got a win? Like against Yair Rodriguez in 2023? Like, come on, guys. Come on. Brian Ortega, I'm not trusting your jiu-jitsu to beat someone like Gene Silva. We've seen Gene Silva go against a jiu-jitsu specialist in Bryce Mitchell, and who knows, Bryce Mitchell's jiu-jitsu might be better than this bum's. I don't really know. They're probably around the same level. Maybe Brian Ortega has a slight edge in terms of MMA jiu-jitsu, but still, dude, Gene Silva, he's fought a style very similar to this, and it was a very easy fight, especially now, dude. Brian Ortega, he's a flabby featherweight. I don't even think he has the dedication anymore. I'm not picking him to beat Gene Silva on any day of the week, including Wednesdays, guys. Number 4, the number 4 spot in this division is Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen's a crafty little fighter, man. Arnold Allen, people forget. Arnold Allen versus Gene Silva, that's a match I'd love, dude. I'd love to see that fight. I'm thinking of that the first time. I wasn't thinking about that before this video, sorry. Gene Silva versus Arnold Allen, that's a dream fight for me, man. Arnold Allen's a crafty striker, dude. Arnold Allen has a 5-round cardio. Gene Silva and Arnold Allen, they're both very physical guys. They're very strong guys in their own way. I think both of these guys striking are very quick. They're both very slick. Arnold Allen, he doesn't have as much crack in his shots like Gene Silva does, but still, dude, Arnold Allen has some crafty little kicks. He beat Movsar Evelev arguably, and I really rate Arnold Allen, dude. I think Arnold Allen's a very good fighter. Does he beat Gene Silva, though? Gene Silva's good. I rate Gene Silva so highly. I think Gene Silva, the ability, all this, the only difference between these guys, in my opinion, what the clear discrepancy would be, is just the power of Gene Silva. Gene Silva's a hard hitter, and I think Arnold Allen has some good takedown defense. I think Arnold Allen might even be the type of guy to shoot a takedown if he really needs to in a fight. But Arnold Allen, he had a close fight against Max Holloway. He had a close fight against Movsar Evelev, and I am really close to picking Arnold Allen here. I'd slightly give the edge to Gene Silva, dude. I think Gene Silva would just be able to stay a little bit more active. I think Gene Silva, we haven't seen his cardio. This is a really tough fight, man. This is a really tough fight. I'm stressing over who I think would win this fight. And I think I think I'm going to go with Arnold Allen here, guys. I honestly think I'm going to go with Arnold Allen here. That's a hot take. I was honestly going to go with Gene Silva before this video started, but Arnold Allen's good. I really rate Arnold Allen. I think Arnold Allen would just be able to get it done via very close decision. So Arnold Allen is the first guy to beat Gene Silva in the featherweight division. That's just a very hard stylistic matchup for him. The next guy we have, Diego Blockhead Lopez. No, never mind. Never mind. Cross that off, dude. The next guy we have, it's Yair Rodriguez. Yair Rodriguez, again, similar in striking, dude. He's a very good striker. He can throw kicks from every angle. He's a crafty little striker. I don't like this crybaby, though. I'm Mexican myself. I'll say it again, but I feel like I use that so much. I'm Mexican myself, but I hate Yair Rodriguez. Go on my last video, see how many times I've said that. But Yair Rodriguez, dude, he's chinny. The kid's chinny. I don't care what you say, dude. He got rocked by Volk. Come on, dude. Pity hands Volk, guys. I'm joking, obviously. But Gene Silva, dude, I don't know how good Yair Rodriguez is anymore, dude. The kid went to a decision with Patricio Pitbull. Before that, he got submitted by freaking Brian Ortega. I don't rate Brian Ortega very highly at all. Gene Silva will be able to submit this guy. I mean, call me crazy. Gene Silva submits this guy. Yair Rodriguez is a crybaby. He's not that good at striking. Maybe his striking, his weird kicks, maybe his weird punches, his unorthodox style could be a problem against Gene Silva. But Gene Silva is also a very unorthodox striker. I think Gene Silva would be able to just piece up him in some ways, dude. Gene Silva, he's a hard matchup for literally everyone, and Gene Silva would be able to beat Yair Rodriguez in my opinion. And now the next guy we have, it's Diego Blockhead Lopez, dude. I got a little bit confused, but obviously this fight is set to take place in September for UFC Noche. Gene Silva versus what's the kid's name? Diego Lopez. It's going to be a decent fight. It's going to be a good scrap. And that's a very close fight. Is it though? Because the more I think about it, the more I realize that Gene Silva really should be able to piece up this guy. I mean, Gene Silva, he's similar to Volk in a lot of ways. I'm not saying they're very similar fighters in the way they fight, but their striking, it's very clean, very crisp. They have very fluid footwork. They're very unpredictable fighters. And I think that Gene Silva is just a harder matchup for Diego Lopez than the champion Alexander Volkanovski is, dude. Volkanovski is chinny. Volkanovski was old. But, I mean, and Volk still beat Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez, I consider this guy a similar fighter to like a Justin Gaethje or Rufus, dude. I don't think Diego Lopez is as good as we all think. I think maybe he can throw up some submissions in on the ground on his back, and I think that could prove to be a problem for Gene Silva. But I don't really see this fight going to the ground. I don't think Diego Lopez is going to shoot a takedown. Obviously Gene Silva is not going to shoot a takedown. And I think on the striking, dude, both of these guys can crack, and the striking is going to be very even. And it's a close fight, I'll give you that. But I think Gene Silva is just, he's more technical at the end of the day, dude. He's not a marauder like Diego Lopez. He's not going to swing for the fences. He's a little bit more composed. And I think over the course of 5 rounds, we'll say this fight is, that Gene Silva is going to be able to get it done, dude. I mean, we've seen Diego Lopez gas out. I will say, his cardio was a lot better in the Volkanovski fight than it was in the Dan Ige versus Brian Ortega fight. That's something I haven't seen people talking about, dude. The narrative going into that Volkanovski fight was that Diego Lopez, man, he might gas out. That's a very big concern. A lot of people were concerned about that. But he proved in that Diego Lopez fight that he could still go strong. I think he rocked Volk at the end of the 3rd or the 4th. He was still cracking at the end of that 5th round, dude. He had a little bit of a late surgence. So I think the narrative that Diego Lopez has bad cardio is pretty much debunked now. And I want to say, I was one of the guys going into that Volkanovski fight that said Diego Lopez's cardio isn't as bad as we think, but I'm not going to glaze myself, guys. Come on. But Diego Lopez, dude, I want to say you'd be able to win this fight. Maybe you would. Maybe there's a chance you can land on Gene Silva's chin, but Gene Silva could also land on this guy's chin. Gene Silva has better kicks, in my opinion. Gene Silva has better body shots. Gene Silva will piece up that body. Gene Silva has better leg to the body kicks, and Gene Silva is just the more creative striker, dude. I mean, Diego Lopez is just the type of guy to throw some big meaty hooks. He'll grab you, clinch up, throw an uppercut and overhand maybe. Gene Silva, he's the type of guy to just really unorthodox, throw a spinning back kick, spinning elbow, then uppercut, left hook. I think Gene Silva is just a more unpredictable fighter, and he's going to be able to get it done. I'll give you guys a little bit of a more in-depth recap, an in-depth prediction when this fight comes closer. But for now, I'm going to favor Gene Silva on this fight, just by a thin margin, dude. I rate Diego Lopez, maybe not as much as other people do. The number one contender in the division is Movsar Evloev. Movsar Evloev, again, is a hard matchup for this guy. He's genuinely a hard matchup for him. That's a fact, dude. I rate him, but how highly do I rate him? I don't know, man. Movsar Evloev, I rate him really high. That's the fact, dude. I don't know what I'm saying here. I really rate Movsar Evloev, dude. I'm not one of those guys who hates on Movsar Evloev. One of those glazers who just try to be like the rest. People who say Movsar Evloev, bro, he's a boring fighter, because in reality, Movsar Evloev is not a boring fighter. In reality, he went to war with Arnold Allen. In reality, the kid went to war with Diego Lopez. He beat Diego Lopez. Movsar Evloev, dude, I don't even know if they're going to give him a title shot. It concerns me how dirty they're going to do Movsar Evloev. But still, in terms of how he would do against Gene Silva, I think Movsar Evloev striking is really underrated. I mean, obviously, the kid's not going to finish you. He can't crack whatsoever. Gene Silva can obviously crack. I've said that many times in this video. But Movsar Evloev, his striking is really underrated. It's very simple. You know, he'll throw a 1-2, maybe a check hook now and then. It's very simple striking. It's effective, though, because I'll tell you what, in that fight against Diego Lopez, he was piecing up Diego Lopez in that third round. Gene Silva, on the other hand, obviously, I don't know how he's going to do on the ground, dude. Movsar Evloev is a relentless grappler who's going to shoot takedown after takedown. He's going to put you in very uncomfortable positions on the ground. And I'm not saying Movsar Evloev is going to be able to finish you on the ground. He's not the type of guy who's going to go for submission. He's not the type of guy who's going to go for ground and pound, ferocious elbows. No, Movsar Evloev is not that type of guy. And Gene Silva, it's just his ability to survive, dude. It's Gene Silva's ability. Can he bite down on the mouthpiece? Can he get gritty? Can he take those shots? Can he really push through after getting laid on by Movsar Evloev for 3 rounds straight? And the honest answer I have is no. I don't believe that Gene Silva is going to be able to overcome that early adversity that I think Movsar Evloev possesses. I think Movsar Evloev, he's going to start off strong. Movsar Evloev, he's a fast starter. He's going to be able to take this to the ground. He's going to be able to just control Gene Silva there for a little bit. And as this gets into the later rounds, I don't see Gene Silva still having that same pop in his shots. I don't see Gene Silva still being the same man he is in that first round. You know, I haven't really commented much on it in this video, but Gene Silva, his cardio is just very untested. We've never seen this guy in late waters, you know. We've never seen him in a 5-round fight. Obviously, the worst we've seen him, I think he hasn't gotten any decisions in the UFC. He's KO'd all the guys. He's similar to a Tom Aspinall, you know. He's knocking out all these guys. But, you know, what happens when the fight goes to the 3rd, the 4th, or the 5th round? You know, Movsar Evloev, he's been in a couple main events. He's been in a couple 5-round fights. And I think that with that comes that just the experience, you could say, dude. I mean, Movsar Evloev, I'm not saying this guy's some guy has been in the UFC for years. I mean, Movsar Evloev has been in the UFC for probably around like 5 years now. But Movsar Evloev, I think, just has the experience in those 5-round fights. I think he's been able to take down Gene Silva very early on. And honestly, towards the end, too, I think Gene Silva would just be overwhelmed, dude. Similar to a Merab. I'm not comparing Merab and Movsar, but in a way I am comparing them because they're similar fighters in a lot of aspects. I think Movsar Evloev even has better striking than Merab. And I think Movsar Evloev would be a tough matchup for the champion Volkanovski. So would Gene Silva. But you guys get what I'm saying here, dude. I think Movsar Evloev is going to be the second guy I picked to beat Gene Silva over the course of 5 rounds. You know, I don't see Gene Silva being finished. I mean, especially not by Movsar Evloev. I'd just be disrespecting Gene Silva if I could pick. I'd be disrespecting anyone if I predict Movsar Evloev to get a finish over them. But still, dude, I rate Gene Silva. I rate Movsar Evloev, and I think it would be an interesting clash of styles. In the end, I'm going to go with Movsar Evloev, and that leaves us with one person left in this division, and it's going to be the champion, Alexander Volkanovski. And I talked a lot about experience in my last fight. I talked a lot about it. I said, well, Gene Silva, he hasn't been in a 5-round fights, has he? You want to know who has? This man, dude. One of the most experienced featherweights of all time. The best featherweight of all time. Alexander Volkanovski. Alexander Volkanovski is a crisp striker who has the cardio. He doesn't have the chin, though. And I honestly think that is going to cost him in this fight, dude. Diego Lopez was able to rock him. Diego Lopez was able to knock him down badly at the end of one of those rounds. I forget which round it was. And that concerns me, dude, because I think someone like Gene Silva's a really good fighter, man. I really rate Gene Silva, and I think Movsar Evloev is a lot harder of a matchup for Gene Silva than actually Volkanovski is. And I'm gonna go with Gene Silva here, dude. I think Gene Silva's knockout power is gonna really just be able to get him a win over someone like Volkanovski, dude. Part of the reason Diego Lopez didn't win is because he's not technical enough. He's not the type of guy to throw a leg kick. He's not the type of guy to really dig deep and just pull out the stuff, pull out the tricks. And I believe that Gene Silva is going to be able to pull out the tricks. I don't see this fight going very late because I think Gene Silva is going to be able to take this to the ground. Not take this to the ground. I think Gene Silva is going to be able to beat Volkanovski to the ground. And I think Gene Silva is going to knock Volkanovski down. I think he's able to finish Volkanovski. I think his ground and pound is pretty good. And Gene Silva's ground and pound. And Volk, dude, I love you, man, but you're old. You're going to be a lot slower, dude. I mean, when you get older, people got to realize this, dude. Literally, in a span of a couple months, you can change a lot when you're old, dude. In the span of a couple months, it's been April since his last fight, dude. If Volk fights Gene Silva, it'll probably be midway through next year. That's around a year since the Diego Lopez fight. And who knows? Volkanovski could lose his next fight against Movsar. I don't even know, man. I mean, Volkanovski, I respect you a lot. You're a legend, but I don't see you getting past Gene Silva. I think Gene Silva is a very hard matchup for you. I think his unpredictability is a lot for you. You know, at least Diego Lopez, you know what Diego Lopez is going to go in there and do. Diego Lopez still managed to knock down Volk. Gene Silva, he's going to go in there. You're not going to know what he's going to do. He's going to throw some weird spinning kick. He's going to throw some weird shots. You're going to be getting in your head before. You're going to be able to just marauder max his way to you, bro. Gene Silva's a marauder, but he's a technical marauder. And when he really gets into the pocket and swings, Volk is going to be in a lot of trouble. Volk's going to be really in a lot of trouble. I don't see a way that Volk wins this. I mean, maybe if Volk can take this to the ground, but I still don't see Volk being able to take this to the ground very easily. And if he does get to the ground, well, then I can't really discredit that. There's nothing I can say about that. If Volk gets to the ground, well, then he'll be able to obviously make Gene Silva look a little bit silly if Volk can get to the ground, but that is if he gets this to the ground. You know, if Volk controls most of this fight, I think he needs to take a similar approach to the Yair Rodriguez fight, where if you need to, you can dig into your wrestling. If you need to, you know, keep your distance from Gene Silva, because if you get into the pocket with him, it's going to be a very unfortunate outcome, seeing Volkanovski flatline against the canvas. I would hate to see that. So just keep your distance, incorporate the wrestling. Volkanovski might be able to edge out a decision, but Gene Silva's got to be able to find that chin. Gene Silva's got to be able to find that chin, dude. That's my prediction. I think Gene Silva would beat Alexander Volkanovski. And in conclusion, Gene Silva goes 14-2 in this division. And his only 2 losses coming to Movsar Evloev and Arnold Allen, dude. And I think a lot of people are going to be shocked that I picked Arnold Allen to beat to beat Gene Silva instead of Volk. You know, I didn't even pick Volk to beat Gene Silva. I must rate Arnold Allen really highly, and the fact is I do rate Arnold Allen pretty highly. Volkanovski and Arnold Allen, I think, I don't know, their striking is very similar and even. I just feel like Arnold Allen he's just quicker than Volk at this point in his career. I think Arnold Allen will be able to piece up Gene Silva. And, not completely, guys, but Volkanovski, I don't believe Volkanovski has it's just the same grit. I don't think he wants it as much as Arnold Allen does, and I think that really is going to come down to what this fight is based off of. So the 2 losses that Gene Silva picks up are to Arnold Allen and Movsar Evloev. I pick Gene Silva to beat Alexander Volkanovski. Call me crazy, boys. If you guys agree, let me know down below. If you guys disagree, let me know down below. And that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. MMA Outpost out.